Colin Hayes believed the universe was simple. Not because it was small, but because everything in it could be reduced to numbers. Cargo weight, fuel ratios, profit margins, even people, sometimes. He sat in the cockpit of the Meridian Drift, sipping bad synthetic coffee, watching numbers scroll across his screen. Outside, space stretched and bent as the ship exited fold travel. Stars snapped back into place like threads pulled tight. Forgeworks' arrival confirmed, Nessa said calmly. Colin sighed. Ah yes. The happiest place in the galaxy. Nessa didn't smile. She rarely did, but Colin had learned to notice the small signs. The slight tilt of her long ears. The softness in her eyes. Atmospheric toxicity has increased by 2%, she added. Only 2%. Colin grinned. They're improving. Nessa looked at him. That was humor. It was. I'm proud of you. She ignored that and returned to her tablet. Contracts. Data. Endless numbers. Colin leaned back, stretching. He liked Nessa. She was precise, calm, and far too serious for someone who could probably outthink a military AI. But today, something felt different. Maybe it was the planet. Forgeworks was not just another station. It was wrong. Even from orbit, it looked like a wound. Molten rivers cut across its surface. Towers of metal reached into a grey artificial sky. Nothing soft. Nothing alive. Cheerful, Colin muttered. Nessa didn't answer. He noticed that. The gift. Colin reached under his seat and pulled out a small wrapped parcel. Hey, he said casually. I got something. Nessa glanced up. Is it legal? Mostly. She stared. Fine, he said quickly. Yes. Legal. Completely harmless. That is not reassuring. He placed the parcel between them. I found it on Selene Station, he said. Old Earth stuff. Probably useless. Definitely overpriced. What is it? Open it later, he said quickly. After we land. She studied it for a moment. Why? Colin shrugged. Because Forgeworks is depressing. Thought you might want something, not depressing. I do not require objects for emotional stability. Sure, Colin said. And I don't need coffee. She paused. That is false, she said. Extremely. For a moment, her ears tilted slightly. That was close enough to a smile. Arrival at Forgeworks. The ship entered the docking bay with a heavy metallic echo. Outside, machines moved endlessly. Drones floated like silent watchers. Workers walked in straight lines, never stopping, never talking. Colin stepped down the ramp. Welcome to paradise, he said. Nessa followed, her expression calm, but her eyes were not. She was looking at something far away. Something that wasn't there anymore. The city without feeling. They moved through the city. Everything worked perfectly. Everything felt empty. Massive screens showed productivity numbers. Not art. Not music. Not anything human. Colin frowned. No advertisements for food. No entertainment. Not here, Nessa said. What do people do for fun? They work. Of course they do, Colin muttered. They passed a broken tower, old, damaged, half replaced by machines. Nessa stopped. That was a resonance tower, she said quietly. Resonance. It connected people, she said. Through sound. Colin blinked. Like concerts. No, she said softly. More than that. He didn't understand. But he could tell it mattered. Back on the ship. Hours later, they returned to the Meridian Drift. The ship felt different from the city. Warmer. Quieter. Alive. Colin stood near the table, staring at the small parcel again. Open it, he said. Nessa stepped closer. Slowly, carefully, she unwrapped it. Inside was a small wooden box. Simple. Old. Nothing special. What does it do? She asked. Colin smiled. This. He turned the tiny key. Then opened the lid. The first note. A soft melody filled the room. Light. Gentle. Simple. Colin smiled instantly. It reminded him of Earth. Of small shops. Of sunlight. But Nessa froze. Her eyes widened. Her ears trembled. The glow beneath her skin, faint before, suddenly brightened. Colin blinked. Nessa. She didn't answer. The music continued. Soft. Endless. Perfect. Her hand grabbed his wrist. Do not stop, she whispered. Her voice was shaking. Colin stared at her. It's just a music box. It is not, she said. A tear fell down her face. Something awakens. Colin felt it then. Not the music. Something else. The air felt heavier. Charged. Alive. Nessa's skin glowed brighter now, faint lines of light moving across her arms, her neck, her face. In our world, she said slowly, music is not only sound. Colin swallowed. Okay. It is connection. The word hit differently. Years ago, she continued, we shared emotion through resonance. The towers? Colin asked. She nodded. They were destroyed. The music played on. And this? Colin asked softly. This, she said, voice breaking, is pure. The first truth. Colin looked at the tiny box. It suddenly didn't look small anymore. It's just gears, he said quietly. It is more, she replied. Her glow pulsed in rhythm with the melody. Like a heartbeat. I had forgotten, she whispered. Forgotten what? She looked at him. How it feels, to be connected. The silence after. The music slowed. Then stopped. The room fell silent. But it wasn't empty. Something had changed. Nessa stood still, breathing slowly. Her glow faded. But her eyes were alive. That, Colin said carefully, was not the reaction I expected. She let out a small, soft laugh. It is restoration. Colin blinked. Restoration. From that? Yes. He looked at the music box again. Then back at her. Then back at the box. I bought that for decoration. The problem. A warning sound beeped from the console. Colin turned quickly. That's not good. What is it? Nessa asked. External scans increased. She went still. They may have detected the resonance. Colin stared at her. You're telling me, that thing triggered security? Yes. He laughed once. Not because it was funny. Great, he said. I always wanted to be arrested for music. A dangerous idea. They stood in silence. Then Nessa spoke. There are others. Colin looked at her. Others what? Who remember? He frowned. You mean your people? Yes. And you think this will affect them too? She met his eyes. I know it will. Colin paced. No. No, no, no. I am a trader. I sell things. I do not start revolutions. It would not be a revolution, she said. He stopped. What would it be? She stepped closer. Remembrance. The word was quiet. But powerful. The choice. Colin looked at the music box. A small thing. Cheap. Old. Useless. And somehow. Dangerous. If we do this, he said slowly, we do it small. Yes. Careful. Yes. No big gatherings. Yes. He exhaled. 3 people, he said. Nessa nodded. That is enough. Colin laughed softly. This is the worst idea I've ever agreed to. You have agreed to worse. Fair. The beginning. Outside, Forge Works continued its endless work. Machines moved. Drones watched. Nothing changed. But inside the Meridian Drift, something had already begun. Colin picked up the music box. Turned the key. But didn't open it. Not yet. Tomorrow, he thought. Tomorrow, everything changes. The lower shift on Forgeworks began quietly. Lights dimmed slightly across the city. Machines adjusted their rhythm. Conveyor belts slowed, then corrected. For most people, it was just another routine cycle. For Colin Hayes, it felt like standing at the edge of something dangerous. He stood in the cargo bay of the Meridian Drift, staring at 3 chairs he had placed in a circle. "This still looks like a support group," he muttered. "It is not," Nessa said calmly. "That is exactly what someone running a support group would say." She ignored him. But Colin noticed something. Her ears were angled forward. Focused. Alert. She was nervous. That made him nervous. The first guests. A soft chime came from the airlock. Colin froze. "Well," he said quietly, "no turning back now." He opened the inner door. The first visitor stepped inside. She was tall, her hands marked with burns from refinery work. Her eyes moved quickly, checking every corner of the ship. Then she saw Nessa. "You said it was real," the woman said. "It is," Nessa replied. The woman's gaze shifted to the small wooden music box sitting on a crate. "That?" she asked. Colin crossed his arms. "That is a highly advanced piece of Earth engineering." "It is small," she said. "Size has never been a reliable measure of importance," Colin replied instantly. The woman did not smile. But she stepped closer. 2 more arrived. One was a thin man with sharp eyes, an analyst. The other was older, slower, his movements careful, like someone who remembered a different world. They formed a loose circle around the crate. No one spoke. Even Colin stayed quiet. For once. The first gathering. Nessa looked at Colin. He nodded. She reached down and turned the small brass key. The sound was soft. A tiny click. But in that moment, it felt louder than the entire city outside. She opened the lid. The melody began. Simple. Gentle. Human. For a second. Nothing happened. Then everything changed. All 3 visitors inhaled sharply at the same time. Their bodies stiffened. The faint glow beneath their skin lit up like distant stars. Colin's eyes widened. "Oh," he whispered. The woman closed her eyes. The analyst gripped his hands tightly. The older man began to cry. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just silent tears, falling one after another. "I remember," he whispered. The music continued. Soft. Unstoppable. Something spreads. Colin stepped back slowly. He didn't feel what they felt. But he could see it. Their breathing began to match. Their bodies relaxed. The glow across their skin pulsed in rhythm. Not separate anymore. Together. Like 4 heartbeats becoming one. Colin glanced at the console. The ship's sensors flickered. Bioelectric readings were rising. Nessa," he said quietly. "I know," she replied. Her own glow was brighter now. Stronger. The melody looped again. The engineer let out a shaky laugh. "It is imperfect," she said. "Yes," Nessa answered softly. "It is." "And it's beautiful," the analyst added. The first risk. A sharp tone sounded from the console. Colin turned instantly. "Not part of the song," he muttered. He pulled up the external feed. 2 surveillance drones had stopped moving. They were hovering near the ship. Watching. Colin's jaw tightened. "Of course they are," he whispered. The older man looked at him. "Can they detect this?" Colin didn't answer immediately. Then, "Maybe," he said. That was enough. Human ingenuity. Colin moved fast. His fingers flew across the controls. "I'm giving them something else to look at," he said. "What are you doing?" Nessa asked. "Lying," he replied. He injected false data into the system. Engine fluctuations. Coolant irregularities. Power spikes. Nothing dangerous. Just messy. Confusing. Human. "They'll think the ship is just old," he said. Which is true. "Temporary," Nessa said. "Temporary is all we need." The drones hesitated. Their sensors shifted. Then slowly. They moved away. Colin let out a breath. "See," he said. "Boring saves lives." The first step. The music ended. Silence returned. But it wasn't empty. The three visitors stood still. Changed. The engineer opened her eyes slowly. We can feel it, she said. The analyst nodded. Even without the sound, it remains. The older man looked at Nessa. Can we learn it? Nessa didn't hesitate. Yes. Colin blinked. Wait, he said. Learn it. She turned to him. We do not need the box forever. He stared at her. You're saying this can spread? Yes. He laughed once. Soft. Disbelieving. I bought a souvenir, he said. And now it's a revolution. It is not a revolution, she said. He looked at the others. At their glowing skin. At their steady breathing. At the quiet strength in their eyes. Yeah, he said slowly. It kind of is. The quiet expansion. It didn't happen fast. It couldn't. Everything had to stay hidden. Small. Careful. They met in places no one watched. Storage rooms. Maintenance tunnels. Abandoned chambers. Never more than a few people at a time. Always quiet. Always controlled. The music box stayed on the ship. Safe. Hidden. But something had changed. People remembered. The human difference. Colin watched it grow. Not like a fire. Like a heartbeat. Slow. Steady. Impossible to stop once it began. You know what this is? He said one day. Nessa looked at him. Hope, he said. She tilted her head. Explain. Humans lose things all the time, he said. Culture. Music. Stories. And we bring them back, he said. Even when we're not supposed to. She studied him. You call that hope? We call it stubbornness, he replied. The turning point. Weeks passed. Something changed in Forgeworks. Not visibly, but deeply. Workers made fewer mistakes. Teams moved better together. Arguments decreased. Efficiency improved. The authority noticed. Of course they did. But they didn't understand. There was no signal. No leader. No central source. Just people. The new resonance. One night, they gathered again. No music box this time. Just 5 people standing in a circle. Colin watched from the side. Nessa closed her eyes. The others followed. For a moment. Nothing. Then. The glow returned. Soft at first. Then stronger. Their breathing aligned. Their bodies relaxed. Connected. Without sound. Colin felt a chill. You don't need it anymore, he said. Nessa opened her eyes. We needed a beginning, she said. Not a crutch. The realization. Colin leaned against the wall. For the first time in a long time. He wasn't thinking about profit. Or cargo. Or numbers. You changed everything, he said. Nessa shook her head. No, she replied. You did. He frowned. I just bought a box. You chose not to ignore what it did, she said. That hit harder. The shift. Soon after, an announcement spread across Forgeworks. Quiet. Official. Cold. Surveillance would be reduced in several districts. Improved efficiency, they said. Self-regulation successful. Colin read it twice. Then smiled. They have no idea, he said. Nessa stood beside him. They see results, she said. Not causes. That's very human of them, he replied. The final moment. Back on the Meridian Drift, Colin picked up the music box. He turned the key. Opened the lid. The melody played again. Soft. Simple. Perfect. Nessa stood beside him. Her glow was steady now. Not overwhelming. Not fragile. Strong. Controlled. Alive. Outside, the city still looked the same. Metal. Fire. Machines. But underneath, something had returned. The human mark. Colin closed the lid gently. You know, he said, if this trading thing fails. She looked at him. I could start a new business. What kind? He smiled. Selling useless things that change the universe. She almost laughed. You would be terrible at it. Probably, he said. Then he looked at her. More serious now. But I'd try. The ending. The universe was still numbers. Cargo. Profit. Weight. But Colin Hayes had learned something new. Not everything important could be measured. Some things were felt. And sometimes, all it took to change a world was something small, something simple, something human.